Having already killed tens of thousands of people and pushed millions to the brink of famine, Yemen's 4.5-year conflict is only deepening. On Saturday, UAE-backed southern separatists effectively seized control of the port city of Aden, the interim seat of Yemen's government, taking over its military bases as well as the all-but-abandoned presidential palace. Now, the move came after the separatists accused a party allied to President Abdrabbuh Mansour Hadi of complicity in a Houthi missile attack on their forces. Saudi Arabia has responded angrily to this takeover, calling for an immediate ceasefire and ordering the separatists to pull back. And Saudi state TV is now reporting that they have begun to withdraw. However, Yemeni officials say the fighters have withdrawn from the streets but still hold military positions. Well, to give us some background and analysis on the situation, let's cross to our guest, senior researcher, fellow Elisabeth Kendall from Oxford University. Hello, thank you very much for being with us on France 24. First, what do you make of these latest developments?
I think these were developments that were waiting to happen. The South has some very serious issues that need to be addressed, and yet their representatives were not included in the United Nations-led talks in Stockholm in December last year. And with the Southern Transition Council being well funded, presumably by the United Arab Emirates, and with forces having been trained across the South who are not directly answerable to Yemen's supposedly legitimate government of President Hadi, then clashes were inevitable. And we've seen them before. We saw clashes between the UAE-backed forces in the south and the Saudi-backed forces of President Hadi in 2017 around Aden Airport in February and in May that year, and also in January 2018. So it was just a matter of time before these forces came to clash again. And I don't think it's the last time.
Well, looking at those reports that the separatists have started to withdraw from the positions they seized, was the move a mistake or was it a show of force, do you think?
I think it was a show of force, and the separatists' statements have been carefully calibrated. They do continue to avow their loyalty to the Hadi government, but the facts on the ground are actually different. They have taken over positions, and indeed a statement earlier today said, yes, we accept a ceasefire, but it made no mention of withdrawal. So as your report said, they may be withdrawing from the streets, but it's unlikely that they're going to give up all the military installations. One of their spokesmen said earlier today that it's not a case of using the term withdrawal because we are protecting these bases against terrorist and corrupt elements. That's the way they're calibrating it. So they're, in a sense, trying to have it both ways, trying to show their control of Aden and at the same time trying to show that they're not going against the coalition.
And how might that translate now as regards to the already stalled peace efforts? Does the South maybe need to be represented, as you mentioned, in those UN talks?
Yes, the South does need to be represented, as do other voices from around Yemen. The talks that happened in December last year were only between the Houthis and the Hadi government, and there are, of course, many other warring sides in this conflict. And peace will never translate into something tangible on the ground unless more voices are included. The international community and the UN, to some extent, has taken its eye off the ball a little in focusing so heavily on the agreement for a ceasefire around Hodeidah. There are many other pressing issues, and these are going to continue to bubble up unless they're addressed.
And how does all this translate for the population and the humanitarian situation on the ground?
Very badly. The population on the ground is already suffering massively. We have about 24 million Yemenis, about 80% of the population in need of some kind of humanitarian assistance, 10 million on the brink of starvation. And having this kind of eruption of violence in Aden is simply making matters worse. There was a statement today by the United Nations saying that some people had been trapped in their homes in Aden and that, of course, the violence in Aden is going to further impede the entry of urgent humanitarian food and medical supplies. So the last thing that anybody wants is a further front line in this already very complicated conflict.
Elisabeth Kendall, thank you very much for having spoken to us.